Hello and welcome everyone to my channel Code with Ease. As part of the array series, today we are going to solve product array puzzle. So in this, we are given an array nums of size n and we have to construct a product array p which is of same size n such that p of I is equal to the product of all the elements of this nums array except the nums of I. Okay, so if you look at this example, this is the array which we are given, it's of size 5, and this is the output array. So in this, what it is saying is this nums array will have certain elements and we have to create a new array which is the product array such that every element of the product array should be equal to the product of all the elements except the number itself. Means if let's say we are at the ith position equal to 0, the first position, so first element is 10, so at 10 means at 0th position, the new product array at 0 position should contain the product of all the elements except the number itself. Means except 10 we have to give a product of the rest of the numbers. So in this case, whatever 3 into 5 into 6 into 2 is 180, so that is what we are getting over here. When we move to the next element, we have to give the entire product of the array except the number itself. Similarly, we are doing it for every other elements. And in the second example, if you see, it is a bit tricky here because we have 0. So in the new array, the output is 0 and 12. Why? Because when we are at 12, the first element, we don't have any other element. There is only one element, 0. 0, product of 0 is nothing but 0. And since we are excluding the number itself, so it is 0. But when we are at 0, there is a positive number which is 12. So for 0 it is 12 and for 12 it is 0. It's just like they have just swapped the elements. So from this, what we have understand is we have to take into account the occurrence of the integer 0. That is one important observation that we could have from the examples over here. Next is the time complexity, which is linear, and the space is constant. We have to return a list of an integer, so we just have to return this array. And another thing is it may contain duplicates, and these are the company tags. Okay, so these are the companies in which it has been lost. So with that, let's move to the whiteboard to understand what should be the approach for solving this question. Hi, here's a brief introduction for the ones who are new to the channel. The objective of Code with Ease is to make problem solving and programming simpler. If you are someone who wants to become a great developer and wants to level up their skills, data structures and algorithms is indispensable and you need to form a solid foundation of that. And this is exactly where we come in. Because we post topic-wise video explanations in Java on various coding interview questions that can not only help to crack the coding interview, but also help to improve and refine the problem-solving abilities as a developer. And finally, here is the USP of our channel. We code every solution live, we do not copy-paste code snippets. We start off by clearly defining the problem statement, the given inputs, the required output, time and space complexities. We also then discuss the brute force way of solving any question without jumping on to the solution and then gradually move on to the optimal solution. We try to use online whiteboarding wherever applicable to explain the approach and the concepts. So that is all about us. So if you guys also want to be a part of this journey, do support us by subscribing to the channel. So with that, now let's get back to the question. Okay, so starting with the approach, so what's the first thing that we do? We usually talk of the brute force way of solving this first. Let me also write down the time and space complexity. It is order of n, and space is not constant because we need to return a new array. Okay. So as the question suggests that we have to return a product array and each of the elements should be excluding the number itself. So what is the first thing that would come to our mind? So if we have to, like we were talking of this element 10, in place of the 0th position, we have to return the product of the rest of the elements. Similarly for element 3, we have to exclude 3 and return the rest of the elements. So a simple thing will be, we'll take the total product. We'll take the total product. What is total product? The product of all the elements. So we'll use one loop to do that, to calculate the product. Okay, so we'll calculate the entire product, and then for every element that is prod of I, we can say total product divided by the element itself. Simple. If we take the total product of all the integers and then just divide it by individual elements as we traverse through the array, we can get the required products for every element and we can keep on filling into our new array. That's the initial thought process that we would have. Okay, fair enough, that works. But as we were talking of this element or the integer 0, this 0 is going to cause a problem for us because there are a few things to consider. Okay, first of all, if we take the total product and we divide it by this, if we have anywhere we have this element 0, if we divide by 0, we'll get a runtime exception, which we do not want. So we don't want exceptions, of course, because we want to avoid the divide by 0 kind of a condition. Another thing which we have to understand is, let's say there are more than 1 zeros. If there are more than 1 zeros, then again the problem will be the product of every element will be 0 except the number itself. Means I want to say, suppose I have this kind of number 1, 3, 0, 5 and 4. So when I talk of this corresponding element at the 0th position, this will be, the product will be, sorry, I have to give one more 0. The product will be 0 because any product, I mean leaving out 1, the product of rest of the elements, since there are 2 zeros, it will be 0. Okay. Even if there was 1 0, then also it would have been 0, but we'll see what is the difference. In case of 3 also it will be 0. In case of 0 also it will be 0. So everywhere, so when we have more than 1 0, everything is becoming 0 as a result. But if we had 1 0 only, like 1, 3, 0 and 5, then the product of every element would have been 0, fine. But in case of this element which is 0, the product would have been something positive, that is 15. And for 5, the product would have been also 0. So this is the difference, like here we have 1 0, here we have 2 zeros, and here we have 0 zeros. So from this, there are different scenarios that is coming up, and this is going to help us in arriving at the optimal solution that we want to figure out. So in case of no zeros, it is very simple. We can simply do this thing also. But we want our solution to be scalable so that we don't care whatever the input is, whether there is 1 0 or no zeros or whatever. Our solution should be able to handle all the scenarios and test cases properly. So that is why we have to brainstorm and think of what are the possible scenarios. So what we have understood so far, if there is no zeros, this thing still works. If there are, like, if there is 1 0 only, then for the number itself, means for the 0 itself, will have a product which is positive. Everything else will have the product equal to 0. Fair. And if there are more than 1 zeros, then everything will be a 0 only. We have understood the scenarios. Now let's try to figure out the optimal solution for this, in which we are going to derive the insights out of this one. So what is going to be the optimal solution? Okay, so we can have some conditions. So the conditions would be, first of all, we can check, we can have some sort of a flag while we compute the total product. Okay, so I'll just write it down. First of all, we have to compute the total product irrespective of whatever approach we are doing, because that we will anyway need. So we have to compute the total product first. So for doing that, we'll run a loop and then we'll compute it. While we do that, in that we have to consider this flag variable. What is this flag variable going to do? This flag variable is nothing but it is going to track how many zeros are there. If there is 1 0, the flag will be 1. If there are 2 zeros, flag will be 2 or whatever. Okay, after we have done this, the second part will be, there will be, after doing this for loop thing to calculate the compute the total product, then we have to have some conditions. So we'll check if and the third thing would be if the flag is exactly equal to 1, which is this scenario where we have only 1 0, then then we will check again if this ARR of I is it equal to 0. If it is, then simply the product for that element only. Which element? The element which is 0 will be equal to the total product. And for everything else, like for everything else, it will be 0. That is what we found. If there is 1 0, for every other element, the required product will be 0, because we have 1 0, which is rendering the total product equal to 0. And for the number itself, means for the 0 element itself, it will be a positive product because we don't have any other zeros. Okay. So this will be the condition, like flag greater than equal to 1 is one condition, flag equal to 1 is going to be one condition. And finally, if none of them satisfy, means what else it can be? There is no zeros. The fourth condition will be if none of them satisfy, means there are no zeros. If there are no zeros, then every element is going to be equal to our initial calculation that we did. That is total product divided by the ARR of I, the number itself. Because if there is no zero, there is no question of having any exception, the divide by zero thing. So that is why at last we are going to do this. We are going to populate every element by doing the total product by ARR of I. So we considered these three scenarios. Number one, if there are no scenarios, if there are no zeros, if there is, the flag is 1, means there is 1 0, then we have to do this. And the other thing is, if the flag is greater than 1, then blanket every element will be like everything will be 0. Okay. So that is the approach for solving this question. So now let's try to implement the code for this. So starting with the code changes, first of all, we have to compute the total product. So we'll take a long variable because we have return an array of long type. So we'll say long of total product, which will be initially, let's say it's 1. Okay. Then we'll have for loop to traverse the array to compute the total product of the elements I less than n and I plus plus. Okay. So nothing much. We just have to do total product equal to the number itself and the initial product, which is nums of I. And also along with that, we had to take a flag variable. So while we're doing this, we also have to keep track of the number of zeros. So if nums of I, whenever we come across a variable, an element which is 0, we'll just increment this flag so that this variable can keep track of how many zeros have occurred during this entire traversal. Okay, so now once this is done, we need to have another loop. In this loop, we are going to populate the product array that we are going to have. So I'll initialize that product array also, which is going to be of size n only. Okay, so now we'll do this traversal to populate this product array. In this, what were the checks that we were doing? First of all, we were checking if the flag is greater than 1, means there are more than 1 zeros. Then everything inside this array will be equal to 0. Okay. Else if the flag is exactly equal to 1, means there is only 1 0. So in that we had to check if the element itself, the nums of I, the element at the ith position, if that is equal to 0 only. If that is equal to 0, then for that we have to give for that we have to calculate the total product only, whatever we have received. The total product only will be the value for the 0th, for the element which is equal to 0. Else, if it is not equal to 0, then our element for this position would be equal to 0. Okay, like we discussed in the during the whiteboarding. Apart from this, what is the last condition? The else block. In the else block, if none of this satisfies, means there are no zeros at all, then our item for this would be the total product divided by the number itself, the number at the ith position. And that will be populated inside this product array. These are the 3 scenarios like we covered in the whiteboard. Flag greater than 1, then everything will be 0. If flag is equal to 1, only everything will be 0 except the number, which is the 0 itself. And if not, then the product of I should be the total product divided by the number itself. Total product is initialized to 1 initially. Flag is also initialized. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to return this array. So we have to return this over here. So we'll just return the array. Yeah, that's about it. So let's try to compile and run. Okay, then submit. Okay, there are a lot of test cases. Network's output is 0 0. Usually, if we are getting this, so flag when we enter, so we'll get total product equal to 1. Second time when we come across a 0, flag will be equal to 1. Okay, the total product will change. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so it's like the total product should remain untouched whenever the nums of I is equal to 0. So we should put this inside an else condition, because the problem will be we need the total product irrespective of whether there are zeros or not. So let's try to submit this. First, let's compile this. Yeah, so that was the thing. We had to compute the total product by leaving out if anything there is. So we had to compute the total product, but not consider whenever there is a 0 element, because that will render the entire product equal to 0. So that was one thing that we missed. Yeah, so that's about this question, product array puzzle. Do let us know in the comments below if you guys have any questions or doubts or you want to share any feedback on this video. If you have enjoyed the session so far, do hit the like button so that this can reach out to many more people. And if it does, it just gives us enough motivation to put out more such content. Also, if you are looking forward to more videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon next to the subscribe button to never miss an update on our upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching.